Hi all, I had quite an interesting game last night playing in the North Circular League. One of my favourite chess clubs, Muswell Hill Chess Club, well, one of my two favourites. I actually only played for two chess clubs, Muswell Hill and Barnet Elizabethans. I hope if any of you are in North London and fancy a chess club, to check those two chess clubs out, but they're both actively recruiting members. So anyway, so it's a home match for Muswell Hill, played at Muswell Hill, and my opponent is Kelmendi, Bajrush Kelmendi of Hammersmith Chess Club, who's a 189 ECF at the moment. I kicked off with E4. To be fair, he lost a bit of time on the clock. He was about 20 minutes late, so it's like 30 moves in an hour and a quarter, and then 15. That's like the time control. So he played G6. I played D4, and after Bishop G7. A little story I can tell you here. I was video annotating a Fischer game against Robatsch, and I discovered that Fischer had actually recommended against the modern defence, this is now the modern without moving the knight, an early free H4, and I thought, okay, I'll try Fischer's recommendation. I thought it was a bit outrageous. It's quite way down on knight, but 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, about the 10th move down. It's been played 94 times, H4. I thought, well, if Fischer's mentioned it can't be that bad. My opponent responded with H5, Knight C3. I've got the classic duo of pawns in the centre. This is thought to be good. They are, like in theory, occupying and controlling some key central squares. My opponent is playing ultra hyper modern. Usually D6 is played here in like about 45 games, or C6 or A6. You can that's like a hippo if A6. When black doesn't usually commit a pawn beyond the third rank. So this would have been actually H6 technically, I think, for a hippo instead of H5. But my opponent played actually super hyper modern B6. And I played Bishop C4. We're kind of largely out of book, Bishop B7. So he's got a double fianchetto, Knight F3, E6. I thought, hold on a sec. Is this really the case that I can't play D5 here? Because if you understand the hippo, what my understanding of the hippopotamus defense was, that black should be ready for both D5 and E5. That if D5, black should be able to play E5, and if E5, D5, when the pawns are like this. And it didn't seem to be the case particularly here. So I played D5, thinking that if E5, then maybe I've got D6. And that could be trouble for black. He hasn't actually castled yet. So you can imagine this position, it's a problem. For example, Knight B5, I'm threatening Knight takes D6 and winning the B7 bishop. So yeah, I played D5 thinking this can't be bad, can it? He plays Knight E7. He doesn't test that other variation I've just shown you with E5. And okay, I played Bishop G5 here. I'm trying to provoke a diagonal weakness. You know, if he plays F6, he can't ever retract that pawn. I'm trying to provoke a weakness on the diagonal. He does play F6, because I'm thinking if he castles now, then I'm going to use the pin. I'm going to play D6. This would be annoying again. So he plays F6, and I just put the bishop on E3. Quite usefully, I thought. Now we have E takes. And I play E takes. And now I didn't really like this next move that he played. Of course, you know, he can't castle. I've weakened that diagonal. If he castles, then there's D6 check, winning the piece. So he plays actually D6, which of course weakens E6. So can you see the move I played instead of routinely castling here? What would you play with white? If I give you 5 seconds to pause the video. Okay, Knight D4, yeah, I just will get a knight into E6. It's very attractive to do that, I thought. King F7, Knight E6. And I really liked my position already at move 12. I don't usually get such good positions from the openings. Queen F3, I thought this would be useful here. Of course, I have to be wary sometimes if the king, if it wasn't checked, sometimes there might be a tactical idea, you know, of taking here. It can be a tactical liability, but otherwise it looks great, that knight. It's like an octopus knight. A6, I didn't mind if he's going to play B5. I can drop my bishop. I just castled queenside, B5. I just dropped my bishop, keeping control protection on this diagonal. A5, and I thought I'd just fix down these pawns. A4, B4, and I play knight E4 now, and I thought both my knights are beautifully centralized. I might be threatening either knight going to G5. I got pressure on F6. I thought wonderful position. I didn't really know what he's doing here, because I thought actually in this position I've got a plan of just G4 and then maybe just taking and pressurizing G6 later. He plays knight F5, which gives me G4 with tempo. I play G4 here because, you know, even if I give him the H5 square, I thought G6 is vulnerable here. If my queen's on G6, I'm just going to double on G6. He does take, queen takes G4. I just thought black's in trouble really, because what does he do about the pressure on G6 if I just put a rook behind the queen? It does seem to be a very, very bad kind of hippopotamus gone extremely wrong. I mean, yeah, one of the key ideas is to be able to react in the centre to keep things closed. If black can keep things closed, then there's going to be less exploitable targets. Here there's a clear target. I've got a massive knight as well. He plays bishop h6. So there is a kind of mild idea, you know, taking here either with the knight or bishop. But often, you know, if you're in a great position, the opponent's threats need to be seen in that context, that you're in a great position. You should be the one, as an expression, calling the shots, which I haven't really used that much in video annotations. I've seen some annotators, heard rather, some annotators use that expression, call the shots. If you're in a dominant position, shouldn't you be in theory calling the shots? I mean, which king is safer? I mean, who's got the more aggressive pieces? I've clearly got very aggressive pieces. So what would you do here to the opponent, actually seemingly threatening the bishop? If I give you 5 seconds, I'll show you what I played and why. You might want to pause the video and check it out and try and work out what you do here in this position with white. So bear in mind this idea that sometimes you want to call the shots if you're in a good position, better position than the opponent. So 5 seconds starting from now. Okay, h5. I just ignore it. Put my own threats. Queen takes g6. And it's very difficult for black here. He can't possibly allow queen takes g6. He plays king e7, which is pretty disastrous. But say he plays knight takes. I might even ignore the recapture here. I might just take this. Where does he go? I take this. I take this. You know, I'm munching everything in sight. You know, it could end up like this potentially with knight f6, checkmate. You know, I'm calling the shots in this position. Basically, I'm definitely calling the shots. Bishop takes. Okay, it's check. And then what? What does he do about g6 after? It looks disastrous. You know, if here I'm just going to take and then at least take this, or rook h7, either. So yeah, I thought this is really abysmal for black. He plays king e7. I think it's just resignable. Queen takes g6. Rook f8 protecting f6. Yeah, he hasn't managed to develop. I take my piece, free piece. Bishop takes e3. It's over really. Rook f7. Rook d f1, putting more pressure on f6. He tries finally to develop the queen side. I just take on f6. He uses the pin. Okay, so it's slight inconvenience. Maybe taking is slightly not optimal. But I find something I thought was going to be really super cute, but not as cute than it later transpires. I play knight g8 check. So he can't take without losing f7. So it forces his king to e8. And originally I thought I'm going to mate him here with some beautiful mate, but actually no, I imagined it. No. So I found what I thought was reasonable in this position, which is just to pin the rook, queen g6, and hold the knight. Knight c5. Yeah, I just take on f8. You know, I'm holding that pin. There's nothing to worry here. Nothing much to worry. King takes. I play knight h6, putting more pressure on f7. He takes on b3, check. I take. Bishop takes d5. And here I finish with, if you can guess, queen g8 check. I'm picking up more materials. I'm interrupting the protection of the rook. I know it's what happened. My opponent was fairly high rated relative to my rating. But yeah, it shows if you have a bad opening, it's difficult sometimes to recover. Yeah, I think it was one of my more crushing wins in the North Circular League for some time with the white pieces. Bear in mind, it's easier to play in Division 2. I mean, it has to be said, if you're a fan of Rocky 3, I think one of the underlying things, if you revisit Rocky 3, you can be a champion by playing, you can be world champion, but if you play relatively weak opponents, then you can keep winning. It's who you play. I remember in Division 1, if you're playing against IMs, you're not going to win any game particularly in a blue moon. So it's the opponents you play, but to be fair, on rating, he wasn't that far technically on ECF rating at 189 and 199. So we're talking, 10 points on the ECF scale. But it shows, if you get a bad opening, Also, other factors come into play in evening chess. How tired people are, if they're late for the game. He lost about 20 minutes. So to be fair, this is the kind of game you might expect more often than you'd think in club chess. But yeah, it seems to be, I think one of the key things to bear in mind, though, if you're going to play a double fianchetto system, the hippo by design doesn't create too many exploitable weaknesses, especially the ideas of keeping the pawns at bay like the hippo on the third instead of the fourth, because that created some weaknesses like g5. You see with bishop g5 I was able to provoke further weaknesses. So the hippo structure is actually fundamentally about, in a way, not creating exploitable weaknesses. It does have the double fianchetto property, but black is always ready in the center, d5 e5, e5 d5, to sort of close up and make sure there's no clear square weaknesses. And in fact, it was used in a high level match, Petrosian against Spassky, where I think Petrosian had used it to draw, but no, Spassky had used it to draw. I think Petrosian missed a win though. There was a key game which I might check out at some point. Okay, someone's going mad with the lawn at the moment. So yeah, if you've got any comments or questions on YouTube, please let me know. Okay, comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.